Welcome to the Second Mix podcast, where we reflect, revise, and remix our lives. I love to talk about things that matter with people who care, and I'm here today with a dose of self-development to help make you better, stronger, and wiser. My name is Matt Bennett, and I'm bringing you some old school personal development from the original masters of motivation, as well as interviews with entrepreneurs, authors, coaches, and consultants, anyone who has a mission of making things better. All right, so before I start, is your name pronounced Dai?
Yeah, you got it. You nailed
Beautiful.
it, my man. That was great, Matt. Yeah, Dai, and then the last name's Manuel. So like then W-E-L-L. So pronounce it that way phonetically.
Okay.
Just
well.
because otherwise they spell with the letter A. It's like the most annoying thing. So I saw Manuel and with an
Got it.
It's just, but my name gets misspelled all the time. I don't really care. But Welsh first name, Portuguese last name. As I always say, I'm Canadian. Don't worry about it. It's all good.
I love it. That's outstanding. Well, the reason I pronounced it right, have you ever heard of Dai Vernon?
Yeah, Dai Vernon. Yes, the comedian. Yeah.
He's
the boxer.
A magician.
Magician.
We're
sorry,
talking,
magician. Sorry.
You're fine. You're fine.
Yes.
You're good.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And he's passed away now, but
yes.
He's one of my heroes in magic. I have many books about him. I'm a magician too. I don't know if I told you that.
No, you didn't tell me that, Matt. That's super cool.
So yeah, I do magic now just for friends and just at home or just at parties or whatever. I don't do a paid gig anymore. But
TikTok magic, man. Like start throwing it up there,
Maybe. Well, so many people are doing it though. I just like to have this nice little kind of half hidden hobby that I think that comes out every once in a while.
Dude, that's awesome. Yeah, Dai Vernon. Sorry, I because also Montreal. I remember I've seen a couple documentaries that made mention of him. I have some friends that love magic, but I myself never. I love watching it, and because I love being surprised. Have you seen Penn and Teller's Fool Us? Yes.
Okay.
I've seen that. Yes.
So I work for a firm called the Magic Firm in Louisville, Kentucky that gets people on that show. And then we watch their act. My job is rewriting their script to make it impactful. Because most people don't always know what to say or don't know how to be public speakers.
Sure.
So I get to rewrite the script and then kind of walk them through how to say these things and the energy to put into it and all of that. So
that is neat. Man, I would have never known that had you not told me that. That's the coolest thing.
We've done like 10 people that have been on that show. And I don't even remember the portion of them that some of them actually did fool Penn and Teller. So
it doesn't happen that often, but I'm always just so impressed at how they're able to just look and a lot of times just know exactly how it's done,
Yes.
And I'm like, because me in the audience, the layman, right? I'm just like, holy, I'm just like blown away, right?
Right.
And but it's always, I really appreciate that. I thought it was such a neat premise for a show. It's so cool. Really
It is. The guy, have you ever seen the Fool Us? The magician the audience has decks of cards and they all throw them on the stage.
No, I don't think I've seen
Okay.
that. Yeah,
if you ever see that pop up, that's Brent Braun. That's the CEO of the Magic Firm. That's who I work with.
Oh, no way. That's cool. So he was actually on the show. Oh, man.
Yeah, that was his inspiring story I'll get into later. But he was there coaching somebody. Yeah. And as he was leaving, he got a call at the airport and they were like, can you come be on the show? We want to record you. And he didn't have any tricks prepared. He didn't have anything going on, but they're like, we want you to stay and record the show. And he fought between yes and no because he doesn't like being in the foreground. He likes manipulating events from the back and seeing people that he's coached be up on stage. But he said yes, and it's one of the greatest experiences of his life.
Jeez,
so
that is cool. That's getting called forward like that, right? And actually listening to the call and then taking action it's not easily done. It's pretty intimidating at times, right? Especially, man, he was called out on the spot too. I commend him. That's pretty cool. What an inspiring story.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Now I got to go YouTube it.
Okay, all right.
Yeah,
and I actually wrote his book too. I ghost wrote Brent Braun's book.
Wow!
So,
man, little things that you're behind, Matt. I love it.
Yes, Dai, but this podcast is about you, so I got to ask you. Well, it's not. It's not.
It's a convo.
It is beautiful. Yeah. So If you were at a party and someone walked up to you and asked you what you did, what would you tell them?
You know what's really interesting is back in the day, I probably would have gone into some big tirade that would stroke my ego. You know, I would be very quick to talk about the company I started and built, and I'd probably talk about all the cool stuff that I do. Because for sure, man, you know, over a decade ago, I was driven by ego. You know, I really was. And my identity was closely attached to what I did professionally. But it was very empty, very surface level. And I actually found that it also made me distance myself from a lot of people because at times I felt like an imposter, right? And even though I had the success and the accolades to prove or validate things, I never felt satisfied with that because I never felt I was aligned with my values. And so I used to drink a lot, led to narcotic use. And we can get into that in a little bit because I made some big changes. But along with those changes, the way I sort of identify myself, if people ask that of me now, it's like, well, first and foremost, you know, I'm on my 45th lap around the sun. I'm a father to two amazing teenage girls. They're now 17 and 19, Chardonnay and Brie. So if for those that are really catching that, yeah, wine and cheese, a couple socialites in the making. And I've been dating my wife for 22 years. And as far as what I do that helps me feel fulfilled nowadays is it's really coaching, mentoring, and supporting people with navigating change because it's not easy, you know, but it's often very, very, very much worth it. But we all know that change, any sort of change, for a lot of the times creates uncomfortableness, and we tend to avoid that, you know? So that's a lot of what I do nowadays. Is I'm really, I help people become champions of change rather than feeling like, oh my God, I'm the victim of change, you know? So that's really what I do now, you know? I've been doing that for 28 years.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. And so do you like take on coaching clients? Yeah. I mean, that's your like an actual coaching platform.
Coach and mentor. I do a lot of speaking as well, just because I love to connect with people and share stories. Because I find that that's how we all learn. You know, it's also, we often see ourselves as our own protagonist, of course, on our own hero's journey. But at any given time, we can be wearing any one of multiple hats, right? But sometimes we see ourselves as a villain. Sometimes we see ourselves as a victim. Sometimes the hero, sometimes the teacher, the guru, right? The coach, the mentor, the parent. And for me, it's just helping people identify who do you want to be in your story, right? And again, that comes through conversations typically. But I've also got a deep background in fitness and nutrition. I've been in the health and wellness space now for a long time, built an 8-figure business in the retail sector of the fitness industry. Wow. Did that for about 17 years. And, you know, I lost my touch with it. I just really didn't enjoy it anymore. I wasn't feeling fulfilled. And that was in my early 30s. And so I exited out of that about 7 years ago and just sort of committed to this other life of trying to really support people in a different way. Rather than just equipment solutions, it's actually looking for more of the root cause of what's creating the issues for people. And because a lot of times when we commit to fitness or want to get healthy, there's underlying things that are usually at hand, but we're just looking at the surface level and thinking that, hey, if I change this, everything's going to get better. We often learn though, well, it's not always the case. So it's getting down to that root cause. But, you know, I'm just a guy that likes to have fun.
That's good. That's awesome. So you talked about, oh man, there's already 1,000 questions I want to ask you. Oh, you talked about you getting over your ego, like you were egotistical at a party. You would have kind of said things to kind of brag, and now you're kind of over that.
Yeah.
What did you do to, like, how do I get over that?
Well, okay, it wasn't a straight line at all. And fortunately for me, I sort of got to a place where life kind of felt out of control. You know, because here I was someone that's seen as, well, a well-known entrepreneur in the health and wellness space. You know, I've been doing it a long time. I have a fairly engaged platform, and I always saw social media as a way to help people. And so I'd often show up and I share content and create content, tell stories, really helping people maybe just shift their perspective a little bit. And that always made me feel fulfilled. But yet on the flip side, here I was, you know, abusing alcohol. I was often not present as a father, you know, even as a husband. And at times it started to affect my professional life as well. I mean, it got to a point, and just to give you a little side note here, man, I mean, I remember going to trade shows in my industry. You know, we'd be down in San Diego or Vegas or San Francisco. You know, the show would often rotate between those cities. And I'd get down there and, you know, I'd be working the show and meeting suppliers, meeting clients. And I remember one year specifically, a couple of the suppliers, you know, they pulled me aside and they, hey, Dai, where are you partying tonight? You are going to be? I want to be there too. I had this reputation as, you want to have a fun time, hang out with fun guy Dai. You know, but that shrouded and really, you know, covered and overarched over how I actually truly wanted it to be perceived. And I realized, that's how I was living. That's how I was showing up. I realized that my perspective, that the actions that I was taking or not taking, Matt, was influencing people and making them see me as a completely different thing than I actually wanted to be seen, And I started to realize, well, it's all on me. It's no one else's fault. It's me. And, I did a TEDx talk last year and I shared about a story that happened about 12 years ago. And I'll just paraphrase for the sake of our conversation. But, if people want to hear the whole story, the dark, the dirty, you can go Google it. But my wife and I were sitting down one morning and I just got home from an all-night bender, which was on par for the course. I would often do that. And I would always joke, and I shouldn't say a joke. I would try to make light of it. Let's just say that. My wife never laughed. But I would try to make light of the situation, say, oh, my phone died. And most of the time I'd just be turning it off. So I wouldn't have to be there texting or pay attention. I could always use it as an excuse. Oh, I lost track of time, right? How many times can you use the same excuse, right? But I got really good at using the same ones and recycling ones. And really just my wife got to a place, and our daughters were both under the age of 6 this time. And she sat me down, and basically just started to talk and create a conversation about what life is going to look like for us to be co-parenting our kids separate. What would that look like? And really, it got to the place where I couldn't defend myself, Matt. And I think that's where I realized she was right. I was definitely in the wrong. And I really owned my actions at that exact moment, because she's like, this isn't a healthy environment for our kids to be brought up in. And I used to always try to defend that. And this is where the ego would come in. My wife didn't have to work at the time. And I was like, listen, I provide everything. I work really hard. So you guys have a great life and da, da, da. And that was my justification. Now, I know I'm not alone in this. And I'm sure there's some people listening that's like, oh, I do that all the time. It's okay. Hey, it's all right. Don't worry about it. If you don't like that and it doesn't make you feel good, there's always room to shift that. And I was just slow to make the shifts. I was in that pattern for many, many, many years, almost the first 10 years that we were together. And long and short of it, she asked me a question, Matt, and this is the question, because I know you're a father with 2 kids, especially a daughter. And for anyone out there, if you're not a parent, don't worry. You can ask yourself a similar version of this question. And I ask everyone, put this question to memory. But my wife asked me, she said, Dai, are you being the type of man that you would want to marry your daughters? And when she asked that question, it was the weirdest thing, because I was like, I can't say yes, and to be perfectly honest, had someone like me at that time who was acting like me, living a lifestyle like me, had showed up on my doorstep asking to be close to my ladies, there's no way I'd let them in the house, man.
Right.
There's no freaking way they get across the doorstep. I'd be like, no, get the hell out of here. No. But yet that's what I was modeling to my kids. I was saying, this is a husband, this is a father, this is a brother, this is a business owner, this is a community. This is what I was modeling. I was saying, this is what these types of people are.
Right.
I'm their first hero. And it was in that moment I made a commitment to go 1 year without drinking. Since the age of 17, that would be the longest stint I'd ever gone. I'd done sober Novembers and stuff like that before, but never committed to anything of that length of time. And when you remove a crutch that you've learned to cope and deal with the challenges in life, and at least distract yourself from those for so long, it's really, really challenging to make those shifts and change. And I didn't realize that it was going to be as hard as it was until I was about 3 months into it. And but fortunately for me, I just stuck to the course and got support and navigated some big shifts. And at the end of the year, I remember my wife asking me, she's like, hey, do you want to share some wine? We'll celebrate. And I was like, you know what? My life has changed so much in the last 12 months. I feel so much more connected to me, connected to my life. Just everything felt better. I was like, what if I keep going? And now I'm coming up on 13 years.
Wow.
But in those 13 years, I'll tell you, man, everything in my life has changed. Everything. But it was one of the biggest and most challenging decisions I've made and endured, but it's also been the most worthwhile change I've ever made in my life. So anyways, for what that's worth, if anybody's listening, I get it. If you're someone that likes to cope or avoid pain, discomfort, and you use unhealthy methods to do that, I'm here. I got you. I know exactly what you're dealing with. And please just know you're not alone. You're not alone. So yeah. That's sort of a backstory there for you.
Wow. So when you're mentoring somebody, you as the coach, you'd probably find it easy to see someone's crutch. Do they usually know where their crutch is, or is that an enlightening moment for them?
By the time people reach out to me, Matt, to be fair, they're already aware of what some of the challenges are that they keep running up against.
Okay.
For the most part. You know, like there's usually a general awareness there because, you know, people don't actually change until they're ready to change. Like I know that from my own case, like I was morbidly obese as a teenager. And it wasn't until I got to a place where I was like, you know what? I don't want to be fat anymore. I don't want to be unhealthy anymore. I want a girlfriend. You know, that was one of my big motivators, straight up. You know, I just wanted someone to want me. And at 15, I made some big health changes, you know, and it took about 2 years to release all that weight to develop a new lifestyle. But I learned a lot through that process. But I remember my parents used to always be like, hey, we'll pay for a gym membership. We'll get you a nutritionist and they can coach and help you. And, you know, there was this, and this, you know, always trying to help me. Every time they said they wanted to help me, I was like, you're just saying I'm not good enough. You're saying I'm unhealthy. You're saying you want me to change. And, you know, as a prepubescent teen, I'm like, you know, like, no, no. Right. But that funny thing is that psychology of that teenage boy, it carried forward with me, you know, and that's also why I led into drinking eventually later on. And sometimes narcotic use led to promiscuity. And, you know, I did a lot of things I'm not proud of. There's definitely a lot of regret and shame there, but I've learned to reframe that in a way that's allowed me to show up for people in a much different way now, as well as show up for myself differently, you know? And I like to just remind people, because the question about the mentorship there, our brains aren't wired to be happy. They really aren't.
Right.
But they are wired to learn. And the two most effective ways any of us learn is through modeling and mentorship. You know, like if you really think about how you learn, it's typically through those.
Right.
You know, like think about it. We go to the University of YouTube and we learn lots of stuff, but it's usually modeled to us, right? We see it, we try it, we learn. And also, you know, mentorship. I know we had a conversation beforehand. You have had some amazing opportunities with some mentors in your life, and those have continuously leveled you up as you've just taken the guidance but more importantly, taken action.
Absolutely, yes.
And that's possible for everybody. And some people say, "Oh, you're so overly optimistic." I'm like, well, it's better than the alternative. What's your problem?
Right.
You know, and that's my standard response. I'm like, whatever. You know, you want to look at it the other way? Gosh, well, have fun.
Well, know? I think that part will give people that are listening to this a lot of hope that they can change. I want to say something, and I want to know if you agree with this, because from what you just said, you never hit. There's a myth. There's a myth that says, "Oh, you're not going to change till you hit rock bottom." You didn't hit rock bottom. Like your conversation with your wife that morning, you were shown a view of rock bottom, but you didn't hit rock bottom.
Yeah, I was pretty darn close. And I only mean because I was at a place where I realized I was going to lose everything. If I didn't act right then and there in that moment and choose to do something different, I knew the alternative wasn't good. I knew it was us separating, trying to figure out how that life was going to work. But I also know without my wife and my kids present in my life all the time, my drinking and my other choices of how I was coping with a lot of the things that I was struggling with, that would only have gotten worse. It really would have. So yeah, no, I could see rock bottom. It's like an elevator falling. I could see it coming closer. But this was that sort of intervention moment where I made a choice to not go any closer to that. So yes, you're absolutely right. To be fair, I mean, I often feel like I was in rock bottom, but you know, in perspective, other people outside looking in would probably be like, "You got everything all together," because that's what a lot of people thought. You know, like again, smoke and mirrors, right? Right. Smoke and mirrors, and that's also people with really healthy egos. And there's nothing wrong with having a healthy ego, but when you're overly confident in a way to shield, you know, it's usually a deck of cards, and it's just a matter of time.
Right. I just feel like there might be that misperception because of the myth that people are going to wait then. Like people are, we are nothing if not procrastinators. Yeah. And it is easy to say like, "Oh, I've only smoked 3 packs of cigarettes for 10 years. Like I can still jog a mile."
Right.
Right. So people are like, "I've not hit rock bottom, so I don't have enough energy to change." And it's like, don't wait. If it's driving you crazy, or the first time you cough up black stuff, like that should be considered rock bottom.
It should be. Or but for some people, it's like when the cardiologist says, "You know what? You've got stage 1. Now you're fortunate if they catch it that early, right? But unfortunately, a lot of the stories I hear and what I used to experience in my old company, you know, we'd often have people like, I would see this all the time. And it's to the point, it's a cliche. And at least in my industry, of the equipment industry, I mean, we hear other cliches like a lot of people got some really expensive towel racks in their basement, right? Like we hear that one about fitness equipment. But I used to see this all the time. The motivations for people who were coming in would often be very fear-based. You know, they've just come from a family GP and they've had their yearly checkup, you know, and I would often see these guys in their sort of late 40s, early 50s. And they're at that pinnacle moment where they're like looking at the second half of life, and they've seen their doctor, and the doctor's like, listen, your blood pressure's out, your blood sugar is way out of whack, you're pre-diabetic, like you don't do something, you're gonna die. And then they come in and they're extremely motivated to get a piece of equipment, but often they'd want the cheapest option as possible. Because deep down, when I would talk to them, they were like, I don't really believe I'm gonna use it. I'm like, what? So as much as sometimes we get to rock bottom, we say we want to change, and we even go through the motions of making change, we still don't change. And that's the thing that I find most fascinating about the psychology of change. It's like we know life can get better by us doing certain things. And it's often the opposite of what we've done to get to that point in our life. And yet we still don't do anything. Or we say, and we speak, we go through the motion, but we don't actually do the actual action.
Right.
And I'm just like, isn't that weird? Like, it's weird,
it is.
Right?
I wonder if someone's not at rock bottom, they're not at that point where they're going to change, but they're like, I don't like the way that my life's direction is going, and I just need to get a coach to kind of shift direction. I need a mentor to help me shift direction. And you try 3 or 4 times to get them to change, or to say, these are the changes that you need to make. And then, you've dealt with them for 6 weeks and they've not done a single thing in changing because meeting with you makes them feel better.
Yeah.
So
right. For a moment,
do you ever have to run to the positive thinking that says, if you keep this up, like paint a picture of the future? Where are your current habits taking you? Where's your current lifestyle taking you? Do you ever end up doing that to say, look, I'm going to give you the serious picture of, if you continue to smoke, if you continue to drink, if you continue to not pay attention to your wife.
You are right. And to be fair, and we sort of talked about this beforehand, because we were talking about association, because that association in our life, the people that are feeding into us. Jim Rohn, he's got that famous quote where the net sum of the 5 people we spend the most time with, outside of family. And there's some truth to that. When you look at our own choices and our actions, your background as a musician is a prime example of that, right? Like, you're in a band, you're around a bunch of individuals with probably similar values and similar aspirations and similar wants and direction in life. So you end up hanging around with these people enough, you all start to think similarly, act similarly, complain similarly,
absolutely.
But this is common for everyone. Like, even if you're on a sports team, and there's positive association, but then there's also negative association, right? But it's coming to terms with, where am I now and what got me here, but also what were the habits that really brought me here? What were the things that I did consistently that helped create who I am right now? And then it's like taking ownership. It's like, well, do I like who I am right now? Who did I always want to be, especially when I was a kid? What are those values that are truly non-negotiable? Like, you never compromise on. See, this is where I used to go wrong, and where the internal conflict was the worst. Was family has always been one of my core values. Just that integrity of family, the prioritization of family. And yet, at my worst, I would compromise that value all the time. And it made me feel worse. But I had a great way to cope with that. I just had more drinks, and it was just an awful cycle. And so what I tend to find, because I think you actually brought it up perfectly, Matt, you talked about the procrastination piece. And if we really think about what creates procrastination for a lot of us, it is lack of clarity and confidence. Like, when we're not clear on direction in our life, we definitely lack confidence in ourselves, in our situation, in pretty much most areas of our life at that point. And when we're confused and not clear, not confident, well, any direction will do. But also, it's really hard to take action. So we tend to procrastinate. We do other things. And we often default to the things that brings us the instant comfort. Unfortunately, a lot of those things that bring us instant comfort are not necessarily healthy habits. And so it's sort of this cycle. So I find one of the best ways to gain clarity and confidence, so you can start taking action, which in turn builds more confidence and builds more clarity. It's like this ebb and flow between those 3 points. There's 3 questions, and if you think it's appropriate, I'd love to share those 3 questions.
I think so. Yes, I'd love to hear them.
Okay. Well, question 1. All right. And this is for anybody that, think about it this way. Have you ever had a splinter? Like a little piece of wood, especially like those ones that go underneath the fingernail, like those ones that get sort of stuck in there. And it's like, I need some tweezers to get this, but it just sort of nags at you. It might not be like excruciating pain. Maybe you got a stake in there. Well, then that's a different situation. But I'm talking about one of those little splinters, right? A little piece of wood like not very big, but it's under there. You can feel it. It's nagging at you, but you'll notice that as the day progresses, because you're like, I'm out for the day. I won't be home for a few hours. I'll just get the tweezers when I get home and I'll get it out. But over the period of the day, the discomfort starts to dissipate. It starts to go away. And now it's just because we learn to tolerate discomfort. We build up this natural tolerance. And if you think about a lot of the big issues that we have in our lives, those challenging things that are typically holding us back from being who we want to truly be, is just like that splinter. You know, it bugs us that we're not that person yet. It bugs us some of the habits that we're doing, but not enough to make a change. You know, it's not uncomfortable enough yet. Or as I've always said, you know, it doesn't hurt bad. You know, when it hurts bad enough, we're usually ready to make some changes at that point. You know, or we're more afraid of not changing than the idea of changing. And if anyone is at that point right now, these 3 questions are instrumental in starting the change process. You know, building the clarity and the confidence so you can take action. Okay. Question one. Can you do this? It seems so simple, right? Can you do this? Can I do this? Can I make the change I want to make? Like when I was 15 years old, right? Morbidly obese, really overweight, very withdrawn, depressed. I mean, all the cliches and stigmas that come with someone in that state of unhealth, I was living, okay? I was that guy. And, you know, I made that mental switch. But as I was making that switch saying I want to get healthy, I really had no clue on how to do that. Because I'll tell you, for 5 years of my life, from 9 to 15 almost, 14 and a half, almost 15. For those 5 years, I ate plenty of food, but it was very poor in nutrition value, high in calories. And my 2 favorite activities was watching movies and playing video games. So you can imagine doing that, compounding day after day after day for 5 years. Yeah, of course I got big, you know, and I got worse and worse from a health perspective. Making the changes backwards, you know, same sort of idea, but I didn't know how to do it. I had no point of reference. I didn't play sports. I would always say I was sick at phys ed, you know, like I didn't want to change in front of my peers. I'm like, no way, take my shirt off and change it. No way. Because kids are freaking cruel, all right? Yes. And so I had to ask myself, you know, can I actually do the change I want to make? And I realized I was lacking confidence and clarity because I didn't know what to do or how to do it. It's an educational issue at that point. You know, it's just me lacking the knowledge. Right. So I was like, okay, I can learn. And remember, I told you, the brain is wired to learn, and we learn through modeling and mentorship. So what I did was I went to the library. I got books out on fitness and on nutrition, mindset, you know, all sorts of books. I remember my backpack was loaded and riding back on my bike afterwards. It was a rough ride home, but it was worth it. My kids joked like, Dad, you should have just Googled it. Like, your dad's older than Google, you know, and they still don't quite understand that. But, you know, every once in a while, it's like, yeah, you're probably older than TV too, right, Dad? And I'm like, kids say the damnedest things. But, you know, it was this education piece. And as soon as I started to gain a bit more clarity and confidence on what to do and how to do it, it gave me a little bit more confidence to then also ask for, you know, some of my peers, even some adults that I knew had a healthier lifestyle. They had things that I aspired to. And I got vulnerable enough and comfortable enough to ask a question. And thank goodness the people that I was asking questions were more than willing to support me. That was my first experience of mentorship in my own life. And it was like amazing. And so I always let people know, you know, I couldn't have done the changes or sustained the changes on my own. I was fortunate enough to have people that were willing to support me. Either way, question 1, can I do this? I got to a place and I was like, hell yeah, I can do this. Now question 2, if I actually do this, will it work? Like, that's a big deal nowadays, especially as we gain in the years in our life and the wisdom and experience. Well, we start to see more and more often, we might have the best of intentions to set things in motion, but we've also maybe experienced a lot of setbacks. Some of those are internal. Some of them are external. You know, there might be other forces preventing us, but a lot of time it's the internal ones that are. But, you know, if I do this, will it work? If I actually commit to doing some of the things that I'm learning and I'm being mentored or modeled, will I too also get similar results to some other people? And what I realized was I needed to see proof of other people that were doing similar things, achieving similar results that I wanted, because that was enough to give me that inspiration, and to see that modeling and mentored behavior gave me, again, clarity and confidence that I could do it too. So can I do this? Yeah. If I do this, will it work? Yeah. Okay. Question 3, is it worth it? And to be fair, you know, to ask that question, Matt, anybody that's listening or watching this, you know, you look in the mirror and phrase that as, if you get that sort of weird feeling in your body when you're looking yourself in the mirror and you're asking that question, and you're like, gosh, especially if you're having a hard time maintaining eye contact with yourself when you ask that question and try to answer it, it means there's some work that can be done, you know, and because that idea of our own personal value, or at least how we perceive ourselves, is a tough one. It's really challenging. Most of us have spent a lot of our life being knocked down, getting up, being knocked down. I mean, they got cliche quotes about this stuff, right? And it's not just about getting knocked down and getting back up again. It's not just about being resilient. Like there's so much more than just that. And where I'm going with this is, that question 3, if it's really hard to answer that one and we don't feel authentic and saying, yeah, I'm worth it, like we can say it, but do we really feel it? We try to convince ourselves, right? There's a follow-up. If you're not 100% like, yeah, I'm worth this and I'm doing this because I am worth it, find a community of people. Ask yourself, who do I need to surround myself with to do this, to navigate these changes? Because believe me, there are groups out there and communities and people in your life that would, if you ask the question, hey, this is the change I want to make, do you think I'm worth it? You know what they're going to say? They're going to be yes. Like think about you and your experience of giving up smoking 3 packs a day, Matt. Like that is absolutely massive. I'm sure if you talk to your wife, some of your best friends, some of your family, you said, this is the change I want to make. You think it's worth it? Am I worth this? And you know what they're going to tell you? Well, yeah, you are. Please. Thank you. Yes, do it. Well, how can we help? But the community. When we don't have the belief in ourselves, it's nice if you get around like-minded individuals that want similar things or doing similar things, might be a few steps ahead of us on the same path because they can drip the extra belief into us until we have it for ourselves. But those questions, I've after reframing all the changes I've had to navigate in my life, I've realized that whether it was conscious or subconscious, these questions were being addressed. Right. So it's a simple framework. Simple doesn't mean easy, though. You do have to take time to sit on this, reflect on it, journal about it. But honestly, if you get clear here, you're going to feel your confidence go up. And as soon as you feel that confidence go up, the next thing to do, take immediate action. Do one thing that moves you in the direction that you've just identified being the direction that you want to go to navigate some changes. Take immediate, don't wait. Don't say, okay, first thing tomorrow. Do it right now. Just do it. Just go do one thing, because that one thing will show you that you are believing that you're worth it. And that's how it starts. That's how it all begins. So anyways, I know that was like an 8-minute tirade there.
That was awesome. No, do you know what? Everything that you just said is extremely valuable to people. And I definitely am happy having it on this show as information to put out there, because I agree with everything that you said 100%. It was enlightening listening to the way that you do it, the 3 questions that you ask yourself. This is going to sound weird, but let's coach me for a second, because I feel like, let's say number 3, if I stand in the mirror and look at myself, I will believingly say, yes, I am worth it. I am worth doing this.
I love it. I love that.
And then I go back to question number 1.
Yeah.
And I probably can't do this.
Well, why? Why does that come up though? I'm just curious. What? Did you have something in it? Is there something that you're working on right now that you can reference or put into context with this?
I am working on losing weight. So okay, I have the question that I ask myself. What is the one next thing that you could change about yourself that would have the greatest impact on your life? And before it was like, besides just making money, I need to be making money for the future. So I started and dug into real estate, and I did it. Now, weight has been something that I've struggled with my entire life. I did, there was a point in my life I was 340 pounds.
Wow, Matt. Dude, congratulations. You've been some significant, that just tells me right there that yes, you can do it, because you've done it before.
But I get down to this last thing and I'm like, and then number 2, I don't know if I believe it can happen. And I think that's the problem. I don't believe, because, okay, we'll take high school. I did get up to 270 in high school. And then I got down to, and my ideal weight with my frame and everything is about 200 pounds.
Okay.
So I got up to 270, and then I dropped it, got down to 200 in high school. And then after that, again, I gained about 60 pounds and I lost it and got back down to 200. And then years later, I got up to 340 pounds and dropped down to 200. And now I'm 240.
Okay.
Now I was getting close to 280. So now I'm 240 and I'm losing the weight, right? But it's like two, do I believe it questions. The first is, do I believe I can do this? The second one is, do I believe I can do it this time for real and change my lifestyle enough that I maintain my healthy weight for the rest of my life?
Yes. Let me ask you this.
Okay.
First thing, when you think about weight, because you're an expert at losing weight, you are, Matt. But you're also an expert at finding it again.
I'm really good at finding it again. I agree.
But that's my point, is when we lose things, there's a feeling of loss, right? We often want that back. You lose your keys. What do you want? You want to find them. I know it's subconscious. I know we're getting into sort of the nitty gritty semantics and language here, but the way we talk to ourselves programs our mind. And you know this better than anybody, especially that Zig Ziglar story you shared with me. You know that inputs will then affect our outputs, which ultimately affects the direction that we go. So here's just something that I would invite you to do is when you're thinking about this weight journey that you're on, or this journey of reclaiming your health and well-being, your vitality.
Yes.
I want you to think about releasing that weight. All right.
Okay.
Just release it. Like you're letting a dove go. Da, 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 like a John Woo movie, right? Go, be free. I don't want you to come back here. You know?
Okay. I love it.
So this idea of just letting it go, because my question to you is, what does the weight give you? What does it bring you?
The weight itself brings me nothing, but
then why is there an attraction to bring it back? So there might be the action, that might be the actual result of the actions that you're taking. So what is it that are those actions that are giving you?
I think that food, after I quit smoking, especially, became my way of coping. I used food to cope. And to some extent, I still do, not in an unhealthy way right now, but it's still like, if I'm alone at lunchtime, I love to sit down, open up a good book and have an avocado and my special sandwiches that I make.
Lovely.
And it's like, I love doing that. And I think all of my life, I've been a reader. It just wasn't till 2019 that I actually changed to personal development and all that kind of books. It was just, I spent my days reading Stephen King and all of that.
Awesome.
But I would overdo it to keep coping because I wasn't happy with my life. So I would any time that I was having any struggles or something, what would make me feel good? I'm going to go down to get a submarine sandwich, a 12-inch sub, and I'm going to sit down at my table and I'm going to read a book and I'm going to eat. And even back then, it was like I was disappointed when the sub was gone. I wished there was more. I wished it could take longer. I feel like I'm over that now. I don't lament when my sandwich is gone.
Right.
But I mean,
you would just make yourself another one, right?
Exactly. Well, I was lucky. Back then I was irresponsible enough that I didn't really have groceries in the house. So I couldn't really make myself food. I would have to drive back to the store, get another sub and come back, which would be embarrassing. There have been times though, this is somehow I was trying to use this as a joke somewhere in my life, but this is the truth. There were times that I would go to McDonald's or go to the store and I would order so much food that I ordered 2 sodas so that the people at the counter thought it was for 2 people.
Wow. But I get that. Thanks for sharing that, man. I know that's not an easy thing to say. And as much as you're trying to find the joke in it, I understand that speaks to a lot of, some sensitive experiences, it's not, I appreciate it. You and I are very similar. We use our sense of humor to try to make the uncomfortable a little bit more comfortable, a little bit more accessible for everyone to participate. Because it's true, these types of conversations aren't necessarily easy. And so I really appreciate that. And so again, it's that feeling that you're chasing. And I think this is what all of us are doing, especially with any sort of habits. There's a certain result that the habit creates, right? Like we take a certain action, it produces a certain result. That result then in itself sometimes becomes ultimately what we're chasing. But to be truthful, it's often the feelings we get before we get the result. And so like when you talked about the idea of the sandwich finishing, right? And then feeling a bit disappointed that it was done. Well, it was like that feeling was also coming to an end. So it was like the end of a chapter or the end of a book. It was like, you want to start it over because it sounds like it was also a nourishing experience for you, emotionally. And so I don't think there's anything negative about it, but maybe the food options could be changed. Maybe you can get that same sort of enjoyment from something different, but yet still enjoy your time reading a book. And so the things are like where I would typically go with a client is we have to go deeper, obviously, figure out what is the pieces that really set in motion this habit, but then what's reinforced the habit. And is there a healthier version that can still give you the same feeling, but yet create a different result? Does that make sense? And
yes.
And I can't say there's any one thing because that's where the experimentation comes in our own personal journey of exploration to figure out what is it that's going to allow us to feel that way, but more in alignment with the health values that we have set for ourselves, for the future version of ourselves that we've identified as important for us to connect with. That's who I want to be. That's how I want to show up. Okay, great. Let's reverse engineer and figure out what are the steps that are going to at least get you in the direction heading towards that. And then as you get closer and closer, you can start to fine tune. But, that food piece, and using food as a coping mechanism, I know that one very, very, very well. And as you can imagine, my parents, they actually separated and divorced when I was 9. And that was sort of that traumatic experience that sort of set things in motion, because I didn't feel like I had any control in my life, but yet I did have control on how I would feel when I would eat certain things. And I got, like I said, it wasn't so much the food, but it was the feeling I was chasing, the feeling of comfort, the feeling that I would obviously get eating sugar or sugary type foods, highly carb, very low nutrition value. So I never really felt satiated. Hence I would want more.
Right.
Because actually on the molecular level, I was starving.
Right.
And that's the thing that a lot of us don't realize is when we're not getting the proper nutrition, our body craves nutrition. It does crave the vitamins, the minerals, the micronutrients, the fiber, the phytochemicals, like all these pieces that make up our natural whole foods. Our bodies crave those, especially when we're not getting enough of it. And yet we confuse that craving and we replace it with often unhealthy choices that give us an instant feedback of, ooh, I feel good, but unfortunately it's usually followed with, ooh, I feel not so good. Right. If I have some more, I'll feel good again, and it's just cycle, and it's frustrating. Because I know a lot of us will see it and be like, God, why do I keep doing this? And we get mad at ourselves. A lot of times it's just not our fault. It's just we've got a habit, and now it's a matter of rewiring our brain to change. And the only way that happens is by doing the opposite things and doing it often and repeated and doing the other one less. And over time, you will rewire your brain. What was the dominant habit will now become a less dominant habit, and you can replace it with something that's more self-serving, more in alignment with the values. But it takes time. People always ask, well, how long is it going to take? I'm like, does it matter how long? I mean, it's a lifestyle that you want to live, so why not just live it and not worry about the actual timelines and just start doing it? As Tony Robbins often says in a lot of NLP courses, just act as if. Start living the life that you've identified the person that you want to be would be living, and just start acting as if, and soon enough, you actually become that.
That's awesome.
You're a testament to this, Matt. Like, look at how much you've changed your life in the last 3 years.
A lot, yes.
Dude, like, that didn't happen by hint. It's not like you woke up and it was like, oh my God, there's a pandemic coming. Oh no, I got to change. Like, you had already started the process before that, and it wasn't a reaction. Well, it could have been from a reaction but it sounds like you've been very proactive in your change. And I think that is the piece, being present to the change in our life. Right. Gives us a feeling that we're more purposeful in our action, but also we feel more connected to the action because we're fully mindful that we're doing it.
Absolutely. One of the things that I do, like, it used to be at 11 p.m., 11:30 p.m. This is after my kids and wife went to bed, because I don't obviously want them to see me binge eating, right?
Sure.
But I would just go into the kitchen and stand in the kitchen and look around thinking of what I'm going to make, what I'm going to eat. One thing, the biggest thing that has changed is that I started, when I do something that I am proud of, when I make any decision that I like, I stop for a moment and say, that is who I am. Like, after this podcast, I'll be like, you know what? I was clear, efficient with my words, all that kind of stuff. I'm going to be like, that's me. That's who Matt Bennett is. Nice. And then when I go stand in the kitchen and binge eat, I will say, this is not who I am every time. Even if I fail myself and go eat, I still say, this isn't who I am. I'm trying to reinforce in my brain that that's not the kind of person I want to be. That's not who Matt Bennett is. Matt Bennett is this guy that's making all these good decisions and focusing on the victory. And I think that has helped.
I love that. I really do. That's so smart, because you're bringing back some of those values and you're reminding yourself, these are what I value. And I value this a lot more over this. And that person who's there, that's not how you would act, And I like that awareness that you have, that sort of, you're creating a bit of a buffer, right?
Yes.
In asking yourself those questions. And I think that's so important when we talk about just this ability to be more mindful and present for ourselves and our lives, right? So that's a really good, anyone's listening or watching, write that one down. Start doing that one, because that makes a big difference, a really big difference.
I got that from, there's a guy called Bob Mowat. In the old school personal development, they'd always say winners and losers. Winners do this, losers do this. I don't like that language, but people who tend to be successful do this. People who tend to be unsuccessful do this. That's kind of how I say it. But one of the things that he said that brought me into the way that I deal with my life now is that winners dwell on their wins and they dwell on the positive outcomes they want. And so for me, I'm like, I have to decide what I want and then think about those things.
Yes.
Like that's where my mind should be. And when I'm thinking about not bad stuff, when I'm thinking about doing things that I would rather not be doing in my life, I mean, I don't dwell on those. And, there's a Zen thing during meditation. I don't meditate except my walks through the woods. I do meditate, but I don't like sit down and take the 20 minutes because I always end up just saying, this is stupid. Don't take offense. Anybody who meditates, I admire that you can do it, but I sit there and the whole time clear your head. And then somebody says, this is stupid. And I'm like, that was me that said that, right? This wasn't some spirit or God or whatever that came in there. That's my brain saying, have I really only been here 45 seconds out of the 20 minutes? Anyway.
No, I'm the same though. I'll let you know. I mean, I'm a big fan of breath work and meditation, but I tend to do it more like yourself, more of a walking meditation style. Like that works for me much better. But it's also, I'm cascading a couple habits, like I'm a big fan of that because a lot of us talk about the time issue, right? Oh, I just don't have time to be healthy. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Right. Yes, you do, because in what you do every day, you could do your day. You know what I mean? Like it's really more of a state of mind and just making certain choices. Continue to live your life the way it is, but just make different choices.
Absolutely, yes.
You're going the same direction. You have this aspiration. You want to build like an 8-figure business. Okay, no problem. But you can do it healthy. You know what I mean? And so it's interesting, right? It's just that shift of our perception on ourselves, but also our lives. But sometimes we just have to fake it till we make it. I'll just be perfectly honest, and it's like, our brains fight against some of the changes that we might be wanting to have because it's uncomfortable, but we just got to keep pushing through it, keep having that positive perspective on why we're making these changes, because that will help us, especially on the days when it's really a struggle. It's coming back to that why. And Nishi said it is like, with a strong enough why, we can endure anyhow. And it's true. If you think back to your own life, I mean, and this is what I really like to hammer home. And even if we were to end the conversation right now, the one thing I would like to empower people to take full ownership of is that change happens, and it's going to happen whether you like it or not. So why not be a little bit more proactive in the change as it applies to your life? Because if you want to, you can. And you can navigate any change you want to make. You really can. And it's the only thing that we know that's absolutely certain in this universe is that nothing stays the same.
Yeah.
We all agree to that,
Definitely.
It's like, come on. All right. Well, let's live with that and let it work for us, So anyway.
That's beautiful. It's almost like, we're standing in the river. What are we going to do? Like you brought up Jim Rohn. He's probably the mentor I've spent the most time with in my life. And I didn't even hear of him till after he passed away.
Oh, wow.
Right. Right.
That's great.
I listened to Jim Rohn more than I listened to Zig Ziglar. Like I've got hundreds of hours into listening to all his stuff over and over to fill my head with it. But one of the things that he says that rang a bell when you were speaking there was 5 years from now, you will surely arrive. The question is where? And that's where you get to decide, because 5 years from now is coming. Whether you like it, whether you don't like it, 5 years from now is coming. So,
it doesn't feel good though when you own that. And you really, I find it actually inspiring and motivating.
Yes.
To realize that, it's like being on a beach. There's been a fresh tide. It's now subsiding, and the beach is like completely smooth. And it's like, wow, I get to be a trailblazer.
Yes.
I get to choose where I go and where I plant those footprints, so where do I want to go? But that is the impact of us making change. Sure, we don't know where we're necessarily going to end up 100%, but we at least have direction. And we know that, hey, this is actually where I want to go. And there's something to be said about that confidence, right? Like just knowing that, okay, if I just keep taking certain steps, like I always tell people, it's like, if you knew that you were only 100 workouts away from being the ideal physical place that you want to be, how quickly would you get those 100 workouts in?
Wow. I think I may use that in my mind right now. Because I probably am. I mean, I probably am 100 workouts away. So I'm going to do it.
It's like, how fast do you want to get there? Right. Like, it's again, we self-regulate our pacing in life. There's at times there's external pressures for sure. And what I mean by external pressures, which turns into internal pressure, it's like, first child coming, right? Like big one, wedding coming. Big pressure, right? There's an external event that you want to prepare for. And I see a lot of people that get very motivated to be able to fit in that beautiful clothes get in their swimwear for their honeymoon. But then after that, it all goes to the wayside. And it's like, why? You worked so hard to get there. Why not stay there? But that's because we haven't really tied something into that person in that direction. That person that we've talked about 5 years from now, we haven't really acknowledged that and that person, that vision. And so I really love that how you've sort of framed this up, Matt. And I think it's just powerful. And hopefully, like I said, if you're 100 workouts away, it's like, hey, you already know you're going to get there. It's just a matter of how quickly you want to go. That's it.
That's excellent. I mean, I'm already thinking of ways to apply it to my life. And I think that my audience here could think right now, how can you apply that to your life? If you rent houses, can you say, in 50 more deals, I do 50 more house deals and I will be cash flowing enough that I don't have to work. Exactly. Do you say I'm 30 dates away from having an amazing relationship with my wife? 30 date nights away. That something like that. You can even make up your own number because all of it is carrying you toward the finish line that you want to get to.
That's right. Exactly. No, it's so true. And that's the point, right? It's like, it's just a way to sort of gamify the activity, but it's nice too, because every time you do it, you actually get instant feedback, and it's usually, which then reinforces the action, right? Or the desire to keep doing it. And that's the nice thing about full shifts, nutrition. It's instant, the benefit. Like we feel it instantly. Like our dopamine increases, serotonin levels regulate a bit more. Our energy improves. We manage our stress better. We sleep better. I tend to find my interactions with other people when I'm looking after myself is better and more authentic. I'm more present for it. So it's like we already know by doing these little subtle things. It's not a matter of having to do a lot of it. You actually can experience the benefit of it right away, like instant. And that's why I love looking at physicality and fitness and nutrition as the starting stepping stones to navigate change. Because if we don't have our health, physical, mental, spiritual, even financial, right? If we're not healthy holistically, we already know to sustain anything in our lives will be challenging. So why not improve our health, and starting with the physical, then the mental, and I actually do both at the same time. The last year I've prioritized my mental health. I've always been someone that struggled with anxiety, social anxiety specifically. And from that, I choose to work as an extrovert, but I'm naturally an introvert. Like even after our conversation today, Matt, I'm going to go chill. I need to, and that's who I am. And I know that. But it's okay. And you see, what I'm sharing that for is like, I could choose to be small. I could choose to be comfortable and stay withdrawn behind the scenes. But I knew that I wanted to make an impact with my life. And I knew the most effective way to do that was to show up for people and show up very publicly, And so, and just a quick note to everybody that's listening to this, because Matt, you actually said this to me earlier before we hit record. You talked about the impact, and especially that desire to really chase impact.
Yes.
I can honestly say in my 28 professional years in this space, I've only ever really, the last 12 years specifically focusing on impact, not income. Where before that, I was obviously chasing income. That was part of that success mechanism, and how I define success was based on a dollar sign as well.
Yeah.
That shifted, it became not about me, but about we, and more so about, and I've been chasing impact. And for the last 12 years, almost 13 years, every time I've refocused to chase impact, my income's gone up. And I'm like, whoa, why didn't someone tell me this before? But it's one of those things I think we sort of have to self-discover it. And so I'm here to say, rediscover the purpose in your life, that meaning, because once you get crystal clear on that and you chase that and you really make that your beat to do that and show up for that, I truly believe you'll be rewarded for it in some capacity. It may not be monetary, but it will be something. It might be fulfillment. It could be joy. It could be happiness. It could be connection, community, friendship. I mean, you will be rewarded. And so isn't that worth chasing? Like, I don't know. To me, it is. So
wow. Well, I have a question that I ask all of my guests. I don't know if you read that or not.
A while ago I did when we first started talking, so I haven't done a refresher. So give it to me. Give it to me.
I'm going to give it to you. It feels like you've already done 10 of these, though. Like you've answered this question so many times. But right now, as of right now, if you had the entire world on the line for 43 seconds, what would you tell them?
Well, Matt, let me take a little bit more. I'll try to do it in 43 seconds. Just to give you a little background, though, before I give you the answer, I told you I struggle with meditation just like you.
Yes.
Well, sometimes the universe just it gives hints to us, and I'm not someone that goes into all the woo-woo stuff typically, but every once in a while, things just keep showing up. Psychologists call it our reticular activation system. It sounds so formal, but it's, you get this idea in your head that you want something, and then our subconscious says, hey, I know you want this. Don't worry. While you're living life doing all the other stuff, I'll keep an eye out for this stuff as it shows up. Like if you have a certain car model, certain color that you want to buy, and you start thinking about that car, all of a sudden it's like every time you're on the road, it's like, whoa, there it is again. There it is again. There's again. That's our reticular activation system. And we can use that to actually help us, propel us, but it's, again, what are we speaking that we want? What is that? And so I was fighting against meditation, and I kept running up against people that had done Vipassana, which is a 10-day silent meditation. It's done in a retreat setting, and it's like literally 10 days you sit on a pillow, like from like 5 a.m. to 9 p.m. every day. One meal a day, vegetarian based, no interaction, no electronics, no writing utensils, like no activity. Like it's literally 10 days you're living like a monk that meditates all day. Wow. And I, like you, 20 minutes is like a marathon, and that's tough, right? But I just kept showing up, and so I decided to do it. And it was life-changing. And the cool thing is it's all nonprofit. These meditation centers are all around the world. You go to vipassana.org, and there's centers everywhere, and it's all run by volunteers. And so you can leave a donation at the end of it, of course. That's how they keep it going. And more people volunteer for future rounds to help other people and to sit and audit these retreats. And so I encourage anybody that struggles with meditation, just create the space to go away for these 10 days and do it. But give yourself at least 4 or 5 days to acclimatize back into regular life after. Don't go right back into life, because it will be a shock to your system. But why I'm bringing this up is the meditation instructor that was leading our course said something really profound, and they were obviously they reference Buddha, but it's non-secular. Vipassana is just a style of meditation, but they don't bring in any religious undertones. But they do make reference to some of the historical representation of Vipassana, and it's associated to Buddha when Siddhartha became Buddha underneath the tree while meditating, like 2,500 years ago. This was the meditation style that he was doing, and the Buddha is known to say, "This too shall pass." Yeah. So this is where my 43 seconds starts. Okay. This too shall pass, right? And a lot of us believe that just means don't worry when we're dealing with the hard crap in life. Just keep working through it, because don't worry, you'll get past it. We can work through the hard stuff. We're resilient and we're good at enduring. But here's the thing. I used to always believe it was associated to the negative. I was corrected by the meditation practitioner saying, no, when this is said, Buddha doesn't mean just the negative. He was actually referring to all the great things in our lives too. This too shall pass. Specifically, that first kiss, first time we see our children walk, that first time that we met our wives or partners, the first time that we landed that big deal at work, once you hit your 50 house mark, right? Like, yes. But don't worry, because that is amazing, but it will pass. So enjoy the moment, the good, bad, and it's all your life. Be present for it. And so I really love that. And I keep thinking about that for myself. It's like even the great things in my life, like you have that method for pausing in the kitchen at 11:30 at night. Same for me. It's like even when good things are happening in my life, I take a second to pause and just really be present for it and appreciate it, because it will pass and it will become a memory that I get to reflect back on, but it will only ever happen once. So that's it. I'm sorry, it took a little bit more than 43 seconds. That's good. No, it was beautiful. Hear that. Take it to heart, please, it will help. Wow. Well, thank you, Dai. How can my people find you if they want to get a hold of you? Well, one, come on up to Vancouver, Canada, Pacific Northwest. If you ever make it to Vancouver, please look me up. We do lots of free events, hikes in our groups, in our communities, park workouts, just walks, connections. So there's always a community that will welcome anybody here with open arms. Just hit me up and I can get you the details. Easiest way to hit me up on social. I'm most active on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. It's just my name, Dai Manuel. So if you can spell it, you'll find me. If you can't spell it, autocorrect will probably correct it. I've got some pretty good SEO going to help with that. All the links will be in the description also. Thank you. No but that's the easiest thing. And I always say, just shoot me a note saying, hey, I heard your Matt's conversation. Here's something that I'm working on changing. Great way for us to start a conversation, And my website's got 1,800 articles, all on this subject matter that we talked about today. So I always tell people, yes, Alice in Wonderland moment, you're going to be going down the rabbit hole, but it's really fulfilling and enjoyable, and you're going to learn a lot. But take what you learn and apply it, Don't just collect knowledge. It doesn't do anybody any good, It's the wisdom, which is knowledge and application. That is what makes change. So that's it.
Beautiful. Well, hey, thank you so much.
Thank you, Matt. Matt, thank you for creating a platform that allows these conversations to just happen organically. You know, like I'm leaving this conversation feeling inspired and motivated. And I just got to say thank you, because that's because of you, the energy that you bring to this platform and to your podcast and to everything that you do. And I just want to say I was absolutely honored to be here. And if we ever want to talk again, I'm around.
Absolutely. Actually, I was already thinking, like, I want you to be one of the 5 people I hang out with the most. You're so inspiring. This is great. This is great.
Well, thanks, Matt. That's very kind to be.
Thank you for listening to the Second Mix podcast. I am Matt Bennett. Please leave a review and give me an honest rating wherever you can. Subscribe on your favorite platform to hear the latest episodes. You can send an email to matt@secondmix.net or go to secondmix.net to read the blog, check out the resources, buy me a cup of coffee, and you can even leave me a voicemail right there on the site. Take steps that will make your week incredible and keep reflecting, revising, and remixing your life. I'll see you soon.